Hey, happy Friday. I'm technically still on holidays, but even the promise of a Thai beach can't keep me from talking about the tech news, so here we go. This week, Google revealed that their subscription business is surprisingly successful. Apple kind of complied with the EU regulations once again, and the United States government started drilling tech CEOs with very little success once again. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. Okay, this week the first reviews of the Apple Vision Pro have emerged, and boy are things getting interesting. Everyone is extremely impressed by the device itself, but there's also a clear lack of a kind of killer app, which makes this kind of an awkward launch, especially when it's a category that is 11 years old at least, and especially when the device itself costs $3,500. Apple made a technically very impressive device, but hasn't really solved the biggest problem with VR and AR headsets, which is that we use them, we like them for a few little things like watching a movie or playing a game, and then that's kind of it, I think. So that's kind of okay for a $500 Quest headset, but for a $3,500 Apple headset, that's kind of questionable in my opinion. Still, I do want to try one. And in more bad news for Apple, Qualcomm has just confirmed this week that Apple had quietly further extended its deal to use Qualcomm's 5G modems in iPhones until 2027, which means for 2 more years than expected. Damn, I guess Apple developing their own modems just isn't happening anytime soon. And then moving on to Samsung, the new Exynos processors were just reviewed, and it turns out that they are kind of just fine for once. They're still slightly below the extremely capable Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in general, even if Samsung actually comes ahead in a few areas now, like ray tracing, and heat and battery life aren't a major issue for once either, so while you'd probably still prefer a Snapdragon, it's not actually a major issue anymore. Hallelujah! And in surprise news this week, HMD, the company that was responsible for the Nokia phone revival, has just launched its own brand. Apparently their licensing deal for the Nokia brand was for 10 years only, which will sort of expire in 2026, and so they have officially announced preparing to switch to their own brand now, so I guess say hello to HMD branded phones soon. Then, over in things that might actually change the internet, Universal Music Group has officially started pulling all of its music from TikTok today. UMG is one of the 3 big labels that represent a ton of stars like Taylor Swift, whose music will all now be pulled because they can't agree on terms. This will be a wild one to watch. Moving on to good news, Oppo and Nokia have finally resolved their quite massive legal fight while I was on holidays, and they have signed a global patent licensing deal last week. This means that Oppo, OnePlus, Vivo, and Realme can all start selling phones in Germany and other markets that they were banned from before, and Oppo has already made a return. Nice! In weird news, this week we got a simulation of Doom running on E. coli bacteria. An MIT biotech researcher has simulated that you can actually run the video game using bacteria with a frame rate of about 1 new frame every 8 hours, or at 0.00003 frames per second. Cool! And to wrap up the brief, Google has finally transitioned its Bard AI to using its latest and more capable Gemini Pro model everywhere. Bard can also, as of this week, generate images with Google's own AI-powered image generator, and the company is tagging these images using ImageFX with what it calls Synth ID, which is a digital watermark that is allegedly robust against image edits and crops. That's pretty cool if it works. Okay, and my first story of the week will be more news from Google that really caught my eye this week, which is that they just announced how much money they are making from subscriptions. We all know that Google has its massive advertising business, which continues to do incredible numbers at nearly $250 billion in revenue in the last year. But what has surprised me is just how strongly Google has been growing its subscriptions. Sundar Pichai said this week that subscriptions were growing strongly and have reached $15 billion in annual revenue, which is almost $4 billion per quarter and up 500% compared to 2019, which means it's growing way faster than its ad business. For comparison, YouTube ads have made $9.2 billion last quarter, so subscriptions now make almost half as much money as YouTube ads do, and the 4 main subscription types for Google are YouTube Premium, YouTube Music, YouTube TV, and Google One. So if you're wondering why they are pushing YouTube Premium so hard and why they're blocking ad blockers so hard, the answer is because it's working. I was particularly surprised when Pichai revealed that Google One, the service that bundles drive storage, a VPN in the US, and a few other things, is about to hit 100 million subscribers, which is actually way more than I expected, and Pichai said that AI features will be added on top of this pile soon too. $15 billion means that Google is now making more money from subscriptions than a company like Spotify, for example. It is 6% of the company's overall revenue, of Alphabet's that is, and it is also growing faster than any other major segment that they have. Pretty wild. Okay, and for my second story of the week, you know how the European Union's Digital Markets Act is forcing companies to kind of open up their walled gardens? Well, Apple found a way to only kind of technically comply again. In good news, Apple has, for the first time ever, officially announced allowing alternative browser engines on iOS, at least in the EU. Until now, all iOS browsers were just Safari with a skin on top, but now Chrome, Firefox, and all the others can actually all ship their own engines. But then, in questionable news, Apple now also allows alternative app stores on the iPhone, which is good, I guess, but not only did they make it clear that they think that these are basically a major privacy and malware risk, where bad actors steal sensitive financial information, they have also made the option to use them particularly tricky. Apple would very much like you to know that they're just here protecting their users and not also conveniently their own bottom line. Anyway, to begin with, each alternative app store and also any app released through those app stores will both have to be notarized, aka checked and approved by Apple. So every app still has to go through Apple in some way or another. So surely the benefit is that the alternative app stores can at least offer lower fees, right? Well, kind of yes and no. If a developer chooses to use an alternative app store or an alternative payment processor, which is now also possible, even within Apple's own app store by the way, they will now have to pay a new 50-cent core technology fee per user once every 12 months or so, at least once they pass the 1 million install mark. And this is of course on top of the various fees that Apple or other payment processors and third-party app stores will charge. Of course, 50 cents is just more than most apps make per user per year, so this is just not a real option for most developers anyway, and it's also a really risky thing. A malicious competitor could, for example, download your app to a bunch of fake iPhones, which is something that apparently people already do, or maybe you just haven't figured out monetization as a new developer yet and your app blows up, you get like 5 million downloads and suddenly you have a massive bill and nothing to pay it from. Pretty crazy, so I think small developers will just not use this. Of course, Epic Games' Tim Sweeney, Spotify's Daniel Ek, Xbox, and more are all basically calling this a farce, saying that Apple isn't really giving people a good enough option and that they'll keep fighting this. And I personally kind of just want to see what an iPhone with multiple app stores would even look like. Will it be great? Terrible? Something in between? Okay, and for my third story of the week, while I think that regulators in the EU might be getting a little too trigger happy with their tech regulations, it looks like the regulators in the US just think that their job basically consists of performative art in a courtroom or something. So this week, 5 social media CEOs were either forced or agreed to go to Congress for a Senate hearing where the CEOs of X, Snapchat, Meta, Discord, and TikTok were legally obligated to answer senators' questions, in truth, related to children's online safety. But instead of using this incredible opportunity to ask real substantial questions of the CEOs finally present in the room, most of the lawmakers from both sides actually were just busy dunking on them and scoring brownie points, I guess. Everyone agreed that kids on social media platforms are kind of maybe a problem. Zuck even stood up and turned around to apologize to the families in the hearing room, and then nothing concrete happened. Now, a so-called Kids Online Safety Act is being proposed by regulators as a new set of rules to regulate the internet, but it's already opposed by 90 human rights and LGBTQ groups, and even the EFF is calling it a censorship bill, so it's not exactly a home run. So watching all of this unfold and no real progress being made is just really frustrating. Now, it would obviously help if these regulators actually educated themselves in the technical fields that they're trying to regulate, or maybe they could just start with a course on logical thinking. And hey, Brilliant has fantastic courses on things like logical thinking and even things like rationality. So whether you are like a lawmaker and you're just trying to learn to think smarter, or whether you're someone trying to advance their career or get ahead in school in a concrete field of STEM like AI, computer science, engineering, or maths, Brilliant has the right courses for you. The courses go from beginner to advanced levels, and their special sauce is that they're all designed to be extremely interactive. So each big lesson is broken into many smaller chunks that are then followed up with interactive tasks that make you truly understand and practice your learnings. This is not only just way more fun than passively reading a book or watching a lecture, but it's also proven to help you actually understand and memorize what is being taught way more effectively. Whether you want to learn how large language models work, or how probability calculations are made, or how you can start thinking in code, Brilliant has the right courses for you. And if you use my link, brilliant.org/TFC, you will not only be able to try the platform for free, but the first 200 people who sign up using that link will also be able to get 20% off their annual premium subscription if they choose to get one. So check them out, happy learning, and I'll see you next Friday.